The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills. This is the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. It is also the new home for Autism Live, and we're coming to you from Tower 1, the 18th floor, where our new studio is, and we're thrilled to be in our new studio and to be with you live. We are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. We hope that you will participate with us. We welcome all of you. This is a big, beautiful spectrum of a community, right? If you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, an individual who's on the autism spectrum, or a family member, or somebody who's just interested. I read over the weekend that I think it was the fifth most asked question on the internet in 2014, what is autism? So if you're one of those people that Googled that at some point, come on down. We're glad that you're here. We're trying to figure that out too. I think the reason why none of us, we have a lovely video that I'm sure Kelby will play at some point where we went to a fabulous event. It was the Mardi Gras for Autism held by the Fullerton Cares organization in Fullerton, California. Great, great organization. We love them. Every year they do a Mardi Gras for autism to benefit autism. And we went to that event and put a microphone in people's faces and said, what is autism? And a lot of them were people who are a part of this community. And it was fascinating to see how all of us struggled to be able to pinpoint what it is. And I think the reason why is because it is a spectrum of things. It is not a one size fits all at all. It's not even a one size fits most, right? So we begin the conversation and we continue the conversation here about what is autism, but more importantly, how do we get to the progress? How do we get to the progress that all of us are looking for to have meaningful things happening in our life, meaningful change, meaningful relationships, and get to the good stuff? Because not everybody wants the same thing, right? Nor is everybody looking for the same thing. So I hope you'll be a part of the conversation here with us, because this whole thing is meant to be back and forth, right? So Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us, some of the ways that you can be watching the show and writing in questions. While he's doing that, I'll remind you our homepage is autism-live.com. Please make sure that you sign up for our email list. That will get you our monthly newsletter. It's totally free. And our weekly viewer guide, which keys you into some of the things that are happening on the air so that you know ahead of time. Because man, you guys, we have got some guests that are coming up in the next month that I'm so excited. Off the top of my head, one of the people that I'm really excited is going to be on the show is Byron Katie. Do you know who Byron Katie is? She is amazing. Her most recent book, Loving What Is, it's a game changer. So she's going to be with us. So sign up for our email list so that you can know who's going to be on and when they're going to be on. And if you weren't on the email list, you could have potentially missed the great show that we had yesterday on the Spectrum with Matt Asner, with his special guests, Jonas Rivera, who was the producer of Inside Out, the hit blockbuster Disney Pixar film of the summer. Oh my gosh, what a really uplifting interview. And then he had Nava Paskowitz on, who happens to be his lovely wife, for a segment where they talked about how they found each other. They are the Autism Brady Bunch, 6 children, 3 on the spectrum between the 2 of them. And then also Nava talked about an amazing upcoming event that is a family retreat for autism Oh my gosh, if you don't know about this, make sure that you go back and watch. The show is up on our YouTube, and all the clips are up on the YouTube as well. Make sure that you check it out. But see, if you had the newsletter, you would have known about it in advance. All I'm saying, get the newsletter, and it's free. You just have to sign up and give us your email so that we know how to get in touch with you. Now, also on that homepage, you can be watching the live show. You can watch the most recently recorded live show, or you can cycle back through the 100 most recent shows. And to the side of where you can watch the shows, there is something called the live feature. It's a series of white boxes. Put your cursor in the one that says your question, start typing, hit enter, and it shows up here. It's just amazing what technology can do now. And in that way, you and I can have a conversation, or you and Matt Asner can have a conversation, or you and Jonas Rivera can have a conversation. I'm just saying. You and Byron Katie can have a conversation. It's a lovely thing. It's totally free. You don't have to log in. There's no username. There's no password. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do that. I'll be honest with you. But so while you can do that, ask your questions totally free. We don't know who you are. We don't need to know who you are. There's no credit card information. We don't know your street address, nothing, right? But it does help us if you tell us where you are in the world when you send your questions, so that we know, especially if you're looking for resources, where we're trying to pinpoint what's happening. Okay, so I hope that you will participate with us. That's my spiel on that. I also want to remind you here at the start of the show that we have a lot of experts on the show, and we've got some amazing guests for you today and this week. Oh, I'm excited. But I always like to remind you that I'm not one of the experts. No. Would love to be, but I'm not. I'm a mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 12, and he's amazing, and he's fabulous, and I love him just exactly the way he is, but we're still working on some things, right? As you would with any 12-year-old boy. But we got incredibly lucky, and I'm reminded of that every day, because we got access to resources. And we got access to those resources not because I, knew people or had a big bank account, because that wasn't the case. But we happened to be in the right place at the right time and got information from other parents, and we followed up on it. I will say that it requires, when you get information, you got to look into it and you have to perseverate on it. Right? That's when perseveration comes in handy. You got to obsess on it a little bit. But I shudder to think where we would be today if we had not had the information that we got. So I'm here to sort of, chair the table here. I sort of feel like if you've seen Inside Out, that's kind of what our table looks a little bit like. Our desk is the desk, and Inside Out for the emotions at the head. So I'm sitting in the middle of the table, metaphorically, because I'm sitting to the side, and moving levers to hopefully get you the information that you need. But don't make me read your mind, because, I like to say that I gave up mind reading to be an autism mom. So write and tell me what you need. But remember, I'm not the expert, but I can hopefully hook you up with somebody who is the expert. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Let me be your new BFF. Okay. And also I want to say, too, that while we have experts on the show, and we run a disclaimer at the start of the show, there is no expert that can give individual specific advice in this format. But you can start the conversation here and then carry the conversation further by going to see that expert. All right. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the heck are they talking about and why. Why are they talking about this, right? What does it have to do with us? How can this help us in our daily life? It's got to be meaningful, right? Or I'm not interested. So today's jargon term is verbal operance. Ooh, big words, right? Okay, what in the heck are people talking about when they say verbal operants? All right, our actual definition here. Verbal operants, functional units of language as described by B.F. Skinner in his book Verbal Behavior from 1957. They include receptive, echoic, mands, tactics, and interverbals. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on your first day of autism, after you've gotten a diagnosis for somebody in your family and somebody talks about, well, we're going to work on the verbal operants, if I went and looked this definition up, I would probably light my hair on fire and run screaming into the street. Right? What does this have to do with me? How can this help me? I don't get it, right? And then we got, and not only, the only thing I get in this definition on day one of autism is B.F. Skinner rings a bell with me, right? But I'm not even sure what. I'm busy doing laundry. I don't, B.F. Skinner, what does he have to do with me? So let's move on to our working definition for verbal operants. Verbal operants, it's when language is broken down into different elements that serve different purposes. Okay, so the different purposes of language, if you think about it, when we're trying to teach somebody to speak and have a conversation, it seems like it would be easy, but the reality of it is quite different. So we break it down into being able to understand what someone is saying to you. That's the receptive that was on the other list, right? Being able to repeat things, we can call that echoics because you're echoing somebody. Being able to request things, that's the mand that they talk about, that you want to be able to request things. I want a cookie, right? Being able to comment on new things, that's the tacting. So seeing something in your environment and being able to comment on it, and being able to have a conversation. I know that there are so many of you out there who are like, well, my child can speak. When people ask me if my child is verbal or not, I answer that my child is verbal because they can speak, but we're not getting conversation. And they can ask for things, but we're not getting to conversation. And how do we get to conversation? And it really, we know that if you take things in one big chunk and it's a complicated thing, we're not really going to see the progress that we want. But if you eat that elephant one bite at a time, that what we do, we separate things into smaller bite-sized chunks and that we can get to real progress. So if you're looking to get to conversation with a child, or an adult for that matter, if you're looking to build those language skills to get to conversation, and by the way, I'm not just talking about vocal communication because some of this is nonverbal. Some of this is being able to make gestures. In fact, we're going to be talking about that kind of thing with one of our guests in just a little while in the second hour. But we want some non-vocal communication as well. Then you really need to know what the verbal operants are and understand that in a good ABA program, you are going to work through the full gamut. For those of you who have teenagers who are in a special day class, there are a few of you I can think of in particular that you write to me and say, my child can list a whole bunch of things, but we're not having a conversation where I say, what did you do at school today? And he or she says to me, well, we did this and we did this. Hey, what are we having for dinner? That you want to get to that kind of conversation. The only known effective way of getting to that is through the verbal operants. So knowing and understanding them can make a huge difference. Knowing and understanding that your school program is not working on interverbals, right? And shockingly, you're not getting to conversation because the interverbals is the part where you get to conversation. Well, if you're not teaching it, it's not going to happen miraculously, not for our kids. Language is amazing, and the brain's ability to get to language, I now understand it to be absolutely miraculous. I didn't get that before I had a child with autism because it just happened. It just happened. I would see little kids and I would see my nieces and nephews and they just picked it up like little sponges, and I missed the miracle. I will tell you, one of the greatest gifts of having a child on the autism spectrum is that it forces you to see the miracles. And it also, if you pay attention, you can find ways to work on your own personal miracle. Verbal operants are the way that we get that miraculous language happening with a brain that isn't picking it up automatically. Verbal operants, it's our jargon of the day. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you. Our question for you today, which hits right at the heart of the matter here, are you a better listener or speaker? Because the truth of the matter is that when you're, a lot of times when you're especially in the school setting, or perhaps with an OT, when they talk about language, they'll put it in just two categories, the receptive language and the expressive language, right? And you heard me just a second ago talk about the verbal operants and that receptive is part of it, but did you notice that they don't lump expressive? Because expressive gets put into several different categories because it's much more involved. But receptive language, again, for those of you who are newer to this, receptive language is being able to understand and receive, to get what other people are saying and to be able to decode it because we know that for some of our kids, it's hard. They're hearing garbled mess, and they can't decode what's being said. They don't understand it, right? So receptive language is being able to receive and understand. Expressive language is what goes that way. Being able to, and again, it's not just verbal. It can be not just vocal, it can be nonverbal as well. That, if I'm saying to somebody, look, my eyes are on you, right? That's language too, that's communication. So, but which one are you? Are you a better listener or speaker? Which is stronger in you, the receptive or the expressive? I always like to say that my expressive is infinitely stronger than my receptive. I have a harder time, and I do have some issues hearing-wise, where somebody can say something and it's, I don't know whether it's a processing speed or whatever, but sometimes it's like I'm on a tape delay. My brain takes a little bit longer to go, what did they just say? Okay, because I have a little bit of a hearing issue. But I think my non-vocal receptive skills are higher than my verbal receptive skills, that I can watch body language and understand much more that's going on than when somebody is speaking, which is very interesting, right? So what's the point of knowing where you're stronger, right? Well, if you're trying to teach somebody, understanding where they are on this spectrum is huge. If I know somebody has strong receptive skills, but their expressive skills are not as strong, well, certainly I want to be teaching them those expressive skills, right? I want to include that in their program. But when I'm teaching them something that they wanted, something that's meaningful that I want them to learn or that they want to learn, I want to make sure that I'm leaning heavily on their strong receptive skills and not on their expressive skills, heavily. And vice versa. If I know that somebody doesn't have great receptive, then teaching is going to be vastly, vastly different than if they do. So really good for you to know personally what's good in you. And if you're trying to teach somebody, it's essential that you know which one of these is stronger. So write in and tell us on Facebook which one is better for you. Okay, we always have a topic of the week. Can you guess? You should be able to put it together by now. It's like clues. We're leaving you little clues. Tomorrow we're going to talk about geocaching because Jem and I did a little geocaching over the weekend, talking about clues. But in any case, did you catch the little clues, the little breadcrumbs I left you? Our topic for today is building language skills. How do we do this? This is a topic frequently of the week just because I know there are so many of you. We know this is an area of deficit. Actually, for all of our members of the autism spectrum, I used to say, oh, well, it's a deficit for a lot of them, but it's not as much of a deficit for the members of our community who are on the Asperger end of things. But the truth of the matter is that there are some language skills that are in social language, and that's a deficit for the members of our community who are Asperger's. So honestly, this is an area that we could all build, whether we're on the spectrum or not, building our language skills so that we can be happier and accomplish the things that we want to. So we're going to be talking about that all this week, whenever we possibly can. Now today, we're going to off-road it a little bit because we've got some amazing guests that are going to be with us today. So taking a look at today, Dr. Rowan Melmed is going to be with us today, and we're going to be talking with him. He is the author of a book, Autism Early Intervention Fast Facts, and we're going to talk with him about that. Really looking forward to that. But we're also going to be talking with him. He's got a book that's coming out a little bit later on this month called Autism and the Extended Family. It has a foreword by Eustacia Cutler, my hero, who is Temple Grandin's mom, and also by Dr. Temple Grandin herself. And it's coming a little bit later on this month in July from just an amazing book publisher, Future Horizons. We love the books that they've got out. We've got some autism news for you that we're going to be sharing in a little while. And then in the second hour, really thrilled, Kelby brought this to my attention yesterday. Rachel Israel is going to be with us. She is a young filmmaker who made a short called Keep the Change. Now, we frequently feature films on the show that have characters that are on the autism spectrum. What's really unique about this little short film, two things. One of them is that when this filmmaker decided to make it and she had characters that were on the autism spectrum, she made the big leap, the big brave leap, and decided that she was going to cast actors who are actually on the spectrum. You gotta love that. You just absolutely have to love that. And it's now an award-winning film that she is trying to get funding to get it to be a feature-length film. And she's within striking distance. I believe that there are maybe 8, 9 more days of funding available where people can make donations, but she's very close to being fully funded. She just needs that little oomph, and I'm hoping that together you and I can help her to get to that. So Rachel Israel is going to be with us talking about Keep the Change. Believe me, it's a movie that you want to know about. And we're going to spend a little time talking about the verbal operants, because I ran through them really quickly, but we're going to take a little time and pick them apart and figure out, okay, what am I missing here, right? I always talk about the Swiss cheese. Our kids are Swiss cheese. All kids are Swiss cheese. You know, they got certain things going for them, but there's some holes in their knowledge, right? Anybody who's ever been a classroom teacher, and I have, you know, kids come in and they've come from different places and different backgrounds, and they have different skills and other things that they don't. Well, the truth is that we can, you know, focus on those holes and gaps and go, there's holes, there are gaps, what are we gonna do? But if we teach those gaps and fill those gaps, our kids fly. They absolutely fly. So as we talk about the verbal operants, think about yourself and think about a person that you love who's on the autism spectrum, and think, okay, where are the weaknesses, where are the strengths? All right, all of that and ever so much more coming up in a few minutes, but we're gonna start with, excuse me, Dr. Raoun Melmed after these messages. We'll be right back.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hey, welcome back to Autism Live. We heard you. Everybody wants
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it allergy free. But here's what's the crazy part of this macaroni and cheese. It's actually healthy.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
That's the most important part.
So we're gonna start, we got our water boiling. There's so many variations on the pasta. We're using today a corn pasta. We can verify with the manufacturer that we have a GMO-free product. So let's go ahead and put that in there.
Ooh,
and if you don't mind, stir that up for
Sure.
me, my friend.
Now it's sticking a little bit to the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
We maybe add a little more high heat oil and spread that around again. One thing you gotta know about gluten-free pasta, if you overcook this, it becomes mush. Let's move this guy over to the other burner so you can see what I'm doing. And now we're gonna start with the old macaroni and cheese sauce. What's great is there's a lot of choices for, you know, different soups. And the way that I look at soups, and again, please follow the recipe on your screen right now. I don't like to measure very often. But what I like to use is a creamy butternut squash soup. So this soup is great because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but also gives people another serving of vegetables. With kids, we don't want to over season. Maybe with the adults, we can season some for the kids first, pull it out, serve them, and then add a little more, you know, garlic powder or onion powder or other types of things into your dish. So the next most important thing on this recipe is we're gonna add in a thickener and the faux cheese. Now some people like their sauce really thick, so you just add in more cornstarch or more arrowroot, so that's not a big deal. How's that doing? You think it's ready?
I think it's done.
Okay, so why don't we switch? I'll take that, you do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to strain this bad boy here. Here, let me turn that off.
Okay.
Or we're going to cause trouble again.
Trouble in Lisa's kitchen.
No,
That's another show.
don't, yeah, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get this all strained. It's a good consistency. So I'm going to check to make sure our pasta is cooked. So really, you just want to make sure, just like any pasta, it's a little bit squeezy, a little bit. Nice. Dude, good job. We're
Yay.
good.
Looks yummy.
So even though the cheese is not totally melted, it's okay, don't panic. What's important is that you're gonna love this recipe once you eat it. What I enjoy most about this recipe is that it smells good, but this stuff
perfect.
is amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to serve you some up, and you can maybe blow a little bit on it so you don't burn your mouth. Sorry, I'm once a mom,
I
always
was
a
like,
mom.
just like we tell our kids.
I know, right?
Oh, but I can't wait. I'm excited.
So I'm going to give a shot of this too, but
Oh my gosh, that is so good.
this is the ultimate comfort food.
Oh,
So
it's so
isn't
good.
it good?
And I'm not just saying that. It is really good. It literally tastes like something our kids would really like. And that sweetness is really, really, really good.
So the bonus for us is that when we're serving this to our kids, they're actually getting a full serving of vegetables in this. So instead of just eating a bunch of carbs and worthless calories, you're actually getting some good stuff in this. And we'll be back next time. I hope you join us again here on Autism Live. We're really loving the feedback, and if you have additional feedback, here's how you get it to us. You can send it to us via email at autismlive@gmail.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And also there's thousands of recipes waiting for you to discover them with pictures and different things on the Taka website. So you can hit Taka on the web, takanow.org, and we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get to do this again.
I had so much
Maybe
fun.
we'll have a little wine, but you got to join us next time. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye guys, we're gonna keep eating.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited because we're going to journey right now to Arizona, where we're Skyping with Dr. Raoun Melmed. He is an amazing gentleman. He is a developmental and behavioral pediatrician who founded the Melmed Center, and he's going to be talking to us about that because he's the medical director there. He is originally a native of South Africa, but has studied in Israel, New York City, Boston, and was an instructor at the Harvard Medical School. He is an author of Autism Early Intervention Fast Facts, and a new book that is coming out later on this month called Autism and the Extended Family. So Dr. Melmed, welcome to Autism Live.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our thrill to be here. Now, I want to talk first about the Melmed Center. Tell folks what the Melmed Center is.
Well, I wear two hats. First of all, I'm the director of the Melmed Center, humbly named after me. And here at the center, we evaluate children and adults with developmental, behavioral, and learning challenges. We focus on attentional difficulties, but mostly on autism spectrum disorders, and throughout the ages, from the very tiny tots all the way through to grandparents who've been diagnosed for the very first time. I'm also the proud co-founder and medical director of the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center, where I'm actively involved in the research program, specifically looking at novel therapeutics in the treatment of children with and adults with autism spectrum disorder, as well as with Fragile X and Down.
And amazing. I have the opportunity to spend a little bit of time on the website for the Melmed Center. And, you know, we talk a lot on this show about how great it would be to have a one-stop shop. And it appears from looking at your website that you really are making that a reality, Dr. Melmed, that somebody can go and see a developmental pediatrician, but they can also get OT services, speech services, ABA, all through one center. Is that the truth?
It is. We are definitely a multidisciplinary program. We recognize that no one person can do it all. Autism, as you well know, is a very an all-encompassing condition. There's so many different aspects, that ranging from issues at home between parents down to the type of ABA services, to how to deal with schools, to the mental health concerns, to the medical problems. And we certainly do strive to try and bring that all together to make it cohesive for families who so often complain that they go from pillar to post. They're not sure where to go very frequently. Sometimes they feel comfortable, sometimes they don't feel comfortable. We like to think of ourselves probably as quarterbacks for the families when they do present themselves with these challenges, both in adulthood as well in childhood, of course.
Well, and where can people find out more information about the Melmed Center? Where would you like for them to go?
Well, the Melmed Center is melmedcenter.com. That's www.melmedcenter.com. And I would also strongly recommend the other program that I work very closely with, which is SARC, or Southwest Autism Research Center, and that's autismcenter.org. They provide wonderful early intervention services and services throughout the lifespan as well, and we very much work together in concert. But our situation at the Melmed Center focuses mostly on the evaluation and the treatment and the intervention as it pertains to children with developmental and behavioral concerns.
Wonderful. And we should note that these are in Scottsdale, Arizona, correct?
Scottsdale in Phoenix, Arizona, correct.
Okay, great.
It's very hot here, by the way. Oh my.
So sorry. It is summer, uh, but so we will later on hope for that when it's cold in the winter. But for folks who aren't in the Arizona area who are watching this and going, darn it, I love this doctor. This sounds great. I want more information. They definitely can read your book. So let's start first, Dr. Melmond, with Autism Early Intervention Fast Facts. This is a book that you have out through Future Horizons. Tell us what someone can find in that book.
Well, I guess I'm preaching to the choir, but when you first identify a child with autism and the diagnosis is made, it sets in place a whole myriad of different scenarios, and parents feel so overwhelmed. Once they hear the A word, so to speak, it's almost as if their minds go blank, and they, for a while, maybe for a day, and maybe for a month, almost can't think of anything else. So a lot of the information that they possibly hear at the time of the diagnosis just goes past them. They're in another world. It's a trance, it's a concern. It's like, hey, what's happening? I'm not sure. I don't understand this. And it's so important to help ground families and to make sure that they have a place to go, that they have reliable information they can easily access. That's one of the reasons why I wrote that book. I wanted to put it together in a nutshell so that people who come and hear the diagnosis can get a very broad-based but a detailed perspective of what they are going through, what they should expect, what kind of problems that they're having, knowing that they're not alone, what kind of resources they can access. And parents don't have time to read voluminous tomes about what's going on. They want something short and to the point so they can kind of get it, and something that they feel gets them as well, and understands where they are in the overall process. So that's why the book was written. That's also why the Southwest Autism Research Center was founded, because the parents need a place to go. And if that can be done in a remote situation, on an online book or a book such as Autism Fast Facts, well, I think then we've met the purpose of the reason for why the book was written.
Yeah, and I want to comment and say that, this is one of those books that it's an essential book. It's less than $10 to purchase the book. And it's the kind of book that everybody should have in their home. And so many of us now who our children have been diagnosed, it's a great book still for us to sort of touch base, because later on sometimes we'll go, why did I not know about this, right? So great book for us to touch base, but I think it's one of those books that you should buy a couple of copies and have it so when somebody calls you and says, I think we might have a problem, I think we're getting diagnosed, or we just got diagnosed, and you know that in your circle of friends, you become the person that they call. This is a great gift to give somebody in that first week to say, okay, you've just been diagnosed. There was a great blog over the weekend that somebody wrote about, I have a child with autism, and when my best friend called me, I didn't know what to say, and what she finally arrived at was saying, I'm here. Well, I think saying I'm here and giving them this book is a great combo of a good favor that you would do for somebody who's just recently had their child diagnosed. I think it's like the perfect combination. So, Dr. Melmed, where are the best places for us to go to get the book? Can we get it on Amazon?
Get on Amazon, and I think you can get on Amazon, I'm pretty sure, and certainly through Future Horizons, that's an option as well. I think most sites have it. I know people have been writing to me from all over the world who have found it very useful. So that's very gratifying. I hope it like kind of stimulates the parents like sitting in the doctor's office and saying to the doctor, listen, I have this problem. My child's got constipation. My child's screaming all night. My child's not eating these kinds of foods. My child doesn't want to play with this toy. My child doesn't want to go to the grandparents. What do I do? It's the kinds of questions that I get asked almost every single day. Hopefully the parent can feel, hey, that kind of information, as if the doctor is sitting in the living room right there with them and coming up with responses and helpful hints as to how to proceed.
It's great. And again, I encourage you, I believe you can get it on Amazon as well, but go to www.fhautism.com. That's for Future Horizon, fhautism.com. You can find this book, and you can very soon find Dr. Melmed's new book, which we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the new book, which is Autism and the Extended Family. This is the book that needed to be written, and so we're going to talk with Dr. Melmed about what it contains and why he decided to do that book now. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are so lucky because our very special guest via Skype is Dr. Raoun Melmed. He is the director of the Melmed Center, and he is also an author. We've been talking with him a little bit about his book, Autism Early Intervention Fast Facts, but Dr. Melmed has a new book that is out in just a few days that is called Autism and the Extended Family. So Dr. Melmed, talk to us a little bit about why you decided to write this book now. We know as autism families how important this book is, but why did you decide to take the time to write this now?
Well, I've been in practice a long time, and I've seen different treatments come and go, and different excitements and breakthroughs in autism come and often disappoint us. The one thing which has always been constant in my mind has always been the impact on the family. The family is so central. For so long, doctors thought that the world revolved around the doctor. And it took us a while to recognize, the family and the mother and the father is the essential pivot and the constant in the child's life. And that's why we talk about family-centered treatment. But there hasn't been much focus on what the families are actually supposed to be doing. What do they go through? How do they feel? How do they relate to the normal siblings? How does the mother relate to her own sister who might have typical children? What kind of jealousies might there be? What kind of problems might there be or benefits might there be from having grandparents around, either close or far apart? What do they tell their friends? What do they tell their cousins? What's supposed to be happening? And I feel that I spend more and more time at the time of follow-up visits discussing that aspect, because I'm so convinced that a healthy family and family first is the most important aspect in a child's life in determining the outcome for that child. Of course, the treatments are so important. Of course, ABA is important. Of course, we need to do all the other therapies as well. But if a mother's depressed and doesn't feel supported, and if a father's absent or missing or not feeling connected to their child, that has an extraordinarily large negative impact on the child's outcome. And making sure that the parents are together and comfortable and supported is absolutely key. And that brought me around to saying, well, I've got to figure out and putting down on paper what I say to parents, how they can utilize the wonderful resources that might well be around them. And then answer the question. Sometimes a grandmother might come and say, Doctor, do you mind if I come in for the visit? And then she'll grab me on the side and say, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to relate to my child, let alone my grandchild. And then the aunt's visiting and the uncle's visiting from out of town, and then they get invited to Thanksgiving and the child is a meltdown, and everybody says, we don't know how to relate, and the mother might say, I'm not going to participate in these kind of events anymore, and she withdraws. and the family questions about what's going on. These are incredibly poignant issues that I think definitely need to be addressed. And it's not just the immediate family, the mother, the father, and the brother. It's the extended family, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, their parents, the cousins, the family friends who just might want to do something for their child, this child that they know and love. So when you know and love a child with autism, what are you supposed to do? Hopefully the answers will be in this book. I very much enjoyed writing it from that perspective.
Well, I can't wait for the book to come out. I'm almost in tears hearing you talk about this because I think for so long, my son is 12 now, and for so long it felt like a battle that for autism parents, we were trying to get people to talk about our children with autism as the whole child instead of just looking at the autism symptoms, but looking at their whole health and treating them as a whole person, not just a person with autism. But you've really hit the nail on the head that we need to look at this as a whole family issue, because I guarantee you we get parents who write in all the time about how, you know, maybe there's one person in the family that isn't on board with the treatment and how that becomes the thing that has to be overcome before anything else can happen, or what it's like, as you said, because people are going to come and visit, and the things that we look forward to in life, things like the get-togethers, the celebrations, and the holidays and things like that, have that extra added stress because nobody knows what their role is. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do, and unfortunately, I think when nobody knows what to do and there's no set social rules, sometimes you have chaos. So I'm thrilled that you wrote this book. We're absolutely so excited about it. Again, this is a Future Horizon book. We want to encourage people to get this book and your other book, which is Autism Early Intervention Fast Facts, but this one is Autism and the Extended Family. You can go to www.autism.com. So that stands for Future Horizon. Now, do we know the actual launch date of the book, Dr. Melmed?
I think it's within the next 3 weeks that hopefully the book will be hot in our hands, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. We want to say again that you are the director of the Melmed Center, and that people can find that at www.melmedcenter.com. But you also mentioned another group that you're a part of. Tell us again what that is and where we can find them.
That's the Southwest Autism Research Center, and that's autismcenter.org. One of the wonderful things that they have over there is a grandparents group, and I've learned a lot from that grandparents group and meet regularly. I meet so many grandparents who ask me, what should I be doing? Mothers who say, my mother, my own father, they just don't get it. They just think I should thank my child, or they just think that the child is fine, is typical, and why am I making such a fuss? They don't understand why I'm spending so much money, why I'm trying this, why I'm having people coming to my home. And the grandparents are bewildered and wonder what happened to my child. And they're dying to help, and they're not quite sure what to do. And I wanted to make this really nuts and bolts. Granny, Grandpa, this is what specifically what you can do. This is what you need to learn. This is what you need to understand about what your daughter's going through, what your son is going through, what their stages of mourning and grieving are all about. This is what you need to understand about your particular grandchild, the child that you're dying to spoil and that you somehow cannot interact with, and it doesn't want to give you the time of day. This is how you can get through to them in this kind of situation. This is what you can offer them. This is the kind of tasks that you can do for them that your daughter and your son will appreciate so much. So it's very much a nuts and bolts kind of situation. And if you're a cousin or aunt or a friend, this is what you can do as well. So we try and look at very practical issues. How to create, for example, an autism toolkit. So when mother gives the child over to an uncle and aunt to take over to the beach, this is what they need to have in their little toolkit to make sure that the day is going to be a successful one. Things such as that. Trying to make it really user-friendly, things that people can take home and use tonight, if not tomorrow.
Well, Dr. Melmed, we're so glad that you are on this planet and doing what you're doing and writing about it so that those of us who aren't in the Scottsdale, Arizona get the benefit, because you're amazing. This is an awesome
you.
gift that
That's
you've
very
given the
sweet.
autism community. So again, make sure that you get these 2 books, Autism Early Intervention, Fast Facts. It's a great thing to have on your bookshelf and a great gift to give to any of your friends who've recently had a child diagnosed. And then everybody needs to get multiple copies of Autism in the Extended Family. What a great stocking stuffer to give everybody who's in your family to get them on the same page. Absolutely wonderful. Both of them from Dr. Rune Melmed from the Melmed Center. And again, you can get those books at www.fhautism.com. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Melmed.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right, you
It's been a
take
pleasure.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
A wonderful, wonderful. Don't we all wish that we had a doctor like that in our neighborhood? Oh my gosh, for those of you who are in the Scottsdale, Phoenix, Arizona, so lucky. Make sure that you check out the Melmed Center. We're going to take a break and we're going to be back with more Autism Live after these messages. Here mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is.
Okay.
I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and you know, I you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite 4-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, you know, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. You know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very, you know, very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So here's what I think is interesting. Just this morning, Kelby and I were having a conversation about parenthood. because you just saw on that clip that Max Burkholder, we had the opportunity to interview him, and we've had the opportunity to interview Max Burkholder a couple of different times, and we were talking about parenthood and why it was so important that, this goes hand in hand with a question that somebody wrote in. They said, I'd love to know your thoughts on TV shows with a character who has autism. And I think that Parenthood was such a game changer, and it really goes, talk about bringing it full circle, goes hand in hand with what Dr. Melmed was saying about autism in the extended family, because there are people who still think that autism is something that's far away, that doesn't happen to them. They don't know anybody with autism, which is a lie, they do. And I think, too, that when somebody is diagnosed with autism in the family, even the direct family, the mother and father, think, ooh, this is happening to us and to our family, and it takes you a year or longer to see the effect, the ripple effect that it has on the family and the ongoing effect that it has, and especially for those of you who have neurotypical siblings, the effect that it has on them. We've featured siblings on the show many times who talk about that there was some trauma about having a sibling on the autism spectrum for them when they were younger, but that if they're able to language it successfully in their heads, they turn into some of the most amazing people on the face of the planet because they're front-loaded with compassion. And many of them have gone into the field of treating individuals with autism, which I find very hopeful. But I do think that it's so important that we look on what is the toll on the entire extended family. And I was talking to Kelby about the fact that on Parenthood, there were the 4 children. And, you know, in any family, there's sort of a hierarchy of how things are going to go and who's in charge and who's driving the bus and who do we go to for support and who's always the person who can be counted on. And I think one of the things that was so cathartic for me in Parenthood was that as you saw the process of the boy being diagnosed with Asperger's and watching how his parents dealt with it, and they dealt with it separately, you know, the mom and the dad had different reactions to it, which was very true to form. There's a good reason why, because Jason Kadam, the executive director of the show, has a child who's on the autism spectrum, so it was coming from a place of honesty. But then over the 6 seasons, you got to see the rest of the family having their moment of interaction and how some of them were better at it than others, and some of them got more frustrated. One of my favorite episodes of the series, and I also, by the way, loved the fact that autism was a subplot, not the whole plot, right? Because that's life, right? But one of my favorite episodes was when the grandpa decided that he was going to take his grandson fishing, because at a certain point, you know, he always takes the boys fishing. You're this age, I'm going to take you fishing for the weekend. And the mom is hysterical about it, saying, I don't think this is going to work. And the dad's saying it's going to be fine. He wants to take him, let him take him. We shouldn't be treating him any different. So grandpa, who hasn't bothered to learn what they're doing in therapy, right? Because he doesn't know how to be, takes him fishing. And then of course they're on the side of the mountain and he's calling the mom and the dad hysterical, saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. He's upset. I don't know what to do. And the dad, Peter Krause, says, well, you know, you gave him his paycheck before he did his work, and does a whole explanation about, never uses the word reinforcer, but says, you have to tell him you have to do X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to get the reinforcer. But doesn't use that language, but he says you gave him his paycheck before he did his work, and you can't do that, because now you're not going to get him to do something, so now you got to come up with a new paycheck to get him to do the thing. And the grandpa gets through and he goes, okay, this is crazy. I didn't know about this. I didn't know you had to do this. And the dad says, well, yeah, this is the deal, but it works. And it's this lovely little moment. And I must say that for me as an autism mom, it made a conversation with my friends and with my family so that they could say to me, I watched Parenthood, is this what it's like? And I could say yes or no, or, you know, and it would start the conversation. Or I could say to somebody, did you see on Parenthood when this happened? This is how I feel. See, I'm welling up, quelling. It was important. And we don't have enough, we have a lot of autism characters on television right now, both realistically and not realistically, but nobody has done it like Parenthood. And we're waiting to see who's going to be the next person to put that in place. for all of us. In any case, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the verbal operants and go a little bit more in depth to give you an idea on what it is exactly we're talking about. Those are the things that help us. We're breaking language down into these units to understand what the function of that in both directions is so that we can teach it. So verbal operants coming up after this.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I just want to say that clip we just saw, that was Bryce Myler, amazing woman. And if you ever are calling the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and you're somebody who is getting your funding through insurance, I want you to know that Bryce is the person who heads up the contracts department. And you may never get to talk to Bryce, but I guarantee you Bryce is touching your pieces of paper as it's being going through the process for insurance. And here's what I want you to know about Bryce. Bryce is one of the moms who's featured in the film Recovered because her son is one of the kids who recovered. And just the other day I was meeting with a group of therapists and talking to them about what amazing people they are and how what they do is just so amazing. I don't have another word for it because it's just amazing. And I said to them, if you ever are having a bad day and you want to see the long-term effect of what you do, because I think it's hard for them sometimes. They go into homes and they work with kids and it's hard. It's really hard work. You want to talk about heavy lifting, it's hard work. And it's got to be hard to keep them reinforced all the time. And I said, if you're ever having a rough day and you want to think, okay, am I making a difference? Watch, there's a video, and it's on CARD's YouTube page, which I think the YouTube page, it says CARD Inc. 1990. I think that's their YouTube thing. They had 5 years ago, they had a 20th anniversary gala, because this is their 25th anniversary right now. So they had a 20th anniversary gala, and it was a huge event at a place in Los Angeles, an old theater from like the 1920s Art Deco, intimidating, high ceiling chandeliers. I mean, I walked in and I'm used to speaking in venues. This room, I was like, oh, this is intimidating, right? And probably, I want to say like 3,500 people in this room, a very dressed up affair. Maisie Gray was performing at this. This was, nothing to slouch at. They had stars that were there presenting. I remember Archie Punjabi from The Good Wife was there and was presenting. Okay, so, and then this young man gets up, and I had never seen him before, but it was Bryce's son. At the time, I think he was 19 years old. So think back to when you were 19, and if you had had to speak in a room full of people like this, how intimidated you would have been. I don't think I could have done it. I would have run tail the other way. But here's a 19-year-old who had a diagnosis of autism as a child that his mother told him you should just have him institutionalized, right? And now he's 19 years old and he's going to address this crowd. Oh my gosh, there's a video of it on that CARD Inc. 1990, and I can't watch it without sobbing. I'm just going to tell you, because he thanks his therapist in a very unique way, but he speaks, and honestly, I was there for it. I still get chills when I think about it. There was not a dry eye in the house. So go and check it out. But I want you to know that when you are a card client and you're getting your insurance, it's the mom who is at the head of it is the mom of that young man. So if you think that she doesn't get it, guess again. She gets it in spades. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the verbal operants. What? Again, these are those units of language that B.F. Skinner portioned off. And this is coming to you from a mom's perspective about why we teach these things. So hopefully it'll be easy enough for you guys to understand. But for those of you who are BCBAs, I know, write in and tell me when I get it wrong. But in any case, as I mentioned before, when a completely neurotypical child develops language, it's this fascinating, miraculous, astounding thing that happens, right? For our kids that are on the autism spectrum, you know, especially our kids who have a traditional classical diagnosis, it just doesn't happen. I love the TED Talk where a researcher had his new baby, yeah, I think it was a boy, born, and he had his whole house wired for a research project, so they videotaped every single moment of this child so that they could begin to learn how he was going to get his first words. And then they condensed how he got to the word water. Every single approximation, they condensed it all together over, like, I want to say an 18-month period from the first all the way up to water, and put it in a 37-second soundbite, right? It's fascinating to hear how the language begins to develop. And then they put it on a chart to show how many times did he hear the word water, and where were the concentrations of, did he hear it most in the kitchen, in the bathroom, where were all the places that he heard, to see all the different factors that go together to create that miraculous moment where this baby said water. And of course, I watched this and found it fascinating, but I thought, you know, what would be even more fascinating is to compare that with a child who ended up with an autism diagnosis, because I bet it would look vastly different, because the child wouldn't get to it in 37 seconds. It would take a lot longer, and it would take a lot more instruction of not just hearing water being said by the sink. It would take a lot of what? But, you know, that's where the big question mark is. What is it? What does it take for the child to be able to acquire the language? Well, we know that the verbal operants is something that's very effective at getting a lot of our kids to speech and to conversation. You know, there are still some kids that we haven't figured out how do we get them to speech, right? Because there are other issues at play. But if we're trying to successfully teach language skills, the verbal operants are a place that we've got to go and give it a good college try. And more kids, it used to be, the statistic was that 50% of kids with autism didn't speak. And now I believe that it's 85% of kids with autism speak. And part of that is because we're hitting the verbal operants and we're hitting them hard. But for a lot of you, you might be hitting one area of it hard and aren't getting another part of it, which is the interverbals, which we're going to talk about in a second. So as we tear it down, we begin with receptive. Receptive, as we said before, is being able to hear things and being able to understand them. The interesting thing is, though, that some of our kids have a hard time decoding certain sounds. In particular, diphthongs, when a vowel changes from one sound to another, but sometimes they have trouble with certain consonants too. And you might be thinking, well, there's nothing I can do about that. I think of Carly Fleischman, who is the young woman who her family thought was going to be completely nonverbal, that by the time she was 7 and there was no functional communication whatsoever, they were looking at, this is probably going to be our deal. They continued to try to work. But by the time she was 12 years old, there had been no sign of any kind of communication, any meaningful kind of communication. When she was 13, she took a typewriter, or a computer, a laptop from somebody and wrote, "My teeth hurt, help me." And then everything changed for this family, because they began to understand that there was a person in there who does understand some things. One of the fascinating things, Carly and her father wrote a book called Carly's Voice. One of the things that we found out from Carly was that she was hearing sounds, but she couldn't figure out what they were. So she wasn't learning language for a long period of time. And then somewhere around 11 years old, 12 years old, she began to realize how to decode those. But the truth is that you can get in skills, there are lessons in the academic curriculum to help you to help a child to decode, so that if you know that a child's receptive skills are really hurting, that you can take a look at some of those lessons and see if you can get at that. Now, Kelby tells me that it's after 11, and I was going to go on and on about the verbal operants. But okay, we've talked about receptive and being able to code. We'll revisit this, but we've got to take a break. We're going to go to the A word. This is the ongoing documentary that's being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. We could just see with his family how they're coping with early intensive behavioral intervention. There's progress. Progress is happening, but sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It can be frustrating for the parents. So let's take a look at Jack Riley, and then when we come back a little bit later on in this hour, very special guest, filmmaker Rachel Israel is going to be talking about her short film, Keep the Change, and how she's trying to get it funded so that she can make a feature film out of it. It features actors who are on the autism spectrum. But first, here is the A word.
Come here. No, really. Come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really. Come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really. This time, trust me.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Woo! If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Yay! If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Stomp your feet. Say hooray. Hooray! Good job. Come here. So we just taught that song to him last week. Or I did. Daddy. Daddy, Daddy, he's outside. Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Touch your head. Touch your ears. I got you again. Oh, you're so easy. Touch your nose. Touch your eyes. I got you again.
Today, Jack Riley is really playful, but isn't interested in playing with any of his toys. He's more interested in social games. So what Jessica does is integrate his lessons in the play, such as body parts.
Touch your head. What's your name? Good. How old are you? 2. Good job. What sound does a lion make? Roar. 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 What sound does a bear make? Grr, grr, grr. What sound does a Jack Riley make? That's a hard one. I want to see if you'd make up something. Jack Riley. I want to see if you'd make something up. What's up, dude? Nice hands? Do you want me to play? Play. You want me to play? Play. Play? Okay, I'll play. You just have to ask. Suzanne, can I try something? Yeah. Can I try having him get your attention? I want to see if he'll actually generalize. Okay. Okay, Suzanne's going to be in charge of the pillow sandwiches now. If you want them, then you need to ask her. Look. Look, look, look. Do you want a pillow sandwich? Oh, look at the pillows. Who has the pillows? Hey, bear. Hey, Susan. Yes? Okay, come here. Yes? Good waiting. Okay,
jumping. Okay, pause.
Okay, we're gonna wait. Wait.
Nice waiting.
Nice
waiting.
That's better. Good job.
Nice waiting.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Good job.
Nice waiting,
That
buddy.
was much better.
I have a crush on my son. I'm done. We'll watch him later, okay? We'll watch him later. We'll watch him later. No, we'll watch it later. No. Jack, settle down. Settle down. We'll watch computer later. It's not going anywhere.
Jack Riley is upset because the fun activity to him has abruptly stopped. Transitioning is anxiety-ridden for Jack Riley because he has difficulty in anticipating what will happen next. In general, though, transitioning for kids is abstract and difficult to grasp.
Hey, should we go jump a little bit somewhere? What do you want to do? Should we play upwards? Daddy. Should we go see Daddy?
Ready?
Oh. Just kidding.
Should we go? Should we go? Should we go? Should we go?
Jack Riley quickly gets over being upset once a new fun activity occurs. He now sees that there are other fun things to do. The issue was that he doesn't know that he will have access to something fun again, but by practicing transitioning, he will eventually learn that just because the activity ends, it's not gone forever.
Now I know my ABCs. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? That was Master P. Diddy White Ice Dude. That's who did that.
Wow, is that gonna be your stage name, Jack Riley?
When you grow up, don't be a tool.
Oh man, Vanilla Ice. Wow, that brought me back to when I was a little girl. Very cool.
I love you, Jack Riley. I love you, Jack Riley. Bye-bye.
Daddy. Oh my god. Do you wanna go see Daddy? Go see Daddy. Okay. We can go do some stuff with Daddy. You wanna go do some stuff with Daddy? Okay, we can go do that.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Jack, we don't touch this stuff. That's Grandma and Papa. Papa and Mama. Mama. You never get to meet Mama.
Mama.
Yeah.
Mama.
That's right.
Mommy.
And who's that?
Mommy.
Who's that? Who's that?
Daddy.
Daddy, that's right.
Mommy.
That's right.
Mommy.
You were only a promise then. You were only a promise.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was the A Word. You can watch the A Word in its entirety, watch all the different episodes on their very own YouTube channel. I guarantee you will learn something from it. And by the way, that's another wonderful resource to give family members if they're going to come and stay with you. Have them watch a couple of episodes of the A Word so they get a feel for what you're trying to do in your home. We have an in the news story for you that I think is of particular interest. This comes to us from Hawaii, in fact, Honolulu, that the Shriners have teamed up with the University of Hawaii School of Medicine to do some research on a ketogenic diet having to do with autism and see what the benefits are. A ketogenic diet, for those of you who don't know, is a high-fat, moderate protein, and low carbohydrate diet. One of the examples that they give in the article is a bunless cheeseburger wrapped in lettuce and nori. By the way, if you go to In-N-Out, you can get a protein-style lettuce wrap burger. We get that all the time for a certain person that I know and love. Dr. Ryan Lee is the director of the hospital's neurodevelopmental clinic, and in the study, two things that you should know. The preliminary results look promising. We'll wait to hear the actual factual results, but they are looking for more families to participate in the study. I will tell you that of the families that are participating, fascinating that they have said even within a few days their language and demonstrated their language is improved, and they've demonstrated improvement in social interaction and some self-care skills. The doctor went on to say, we don't know why. We don't understand the details about why the ketogenic diet works. We feel that giving the brain a different kind of fuel besides glucose, giving it ketones, might improve its metabolic function. We do know that the ketogenic diet has been shown to be effective in individuals who have seizure disorders, that in some cases it lowers the amount of seizures by more than 50%. So this is an area of interest as we look at diet. I think that it's interesting, and who am I? I'm not a researcher, but when they say, well, we don't know why it does this, it does occur to me that so many of us are battling the never-ending yeast problem. It's just an ongoing battle. I know my son certainly battled with yeast, and a lot of our kids have yeast issues. Some of the symptoms that we see when there are yeast issues are a lack of ability to focus, that they will get, when it's a severe out-of-whack yeast issue, they will, giggle at inappropriate things and just find things hilariously funny. I noticed with my son when he was little that he would give off a smell it smelled like yeast. It was like walking by a bakery. You smell his little head or his feet. We would call his feet little yeasty muffins. It smelled like, it should smell bad, right? But on him it would smell like a fresh bun from a bakery. And eventually, when his yeast got far enough out of whack, you could smell in his breath, it smelled like he was drunk. It smelled like brandy. Definitely a yeast issue. And when you cut the carbs out, remember that carbs convert to sugar, which feeds yeast. I didn't know anything about yeast until my child was diagnosed with autism, but we all need to have a certain amount of yeast to keep our body in check. But yeast is an organism that lives in your body, and it wants to live. It doesn't want to die. And what it lives off of is sugar. And you've ever baked bread and you see what happens when you give yeast some sugar, it balloons up because it grows. And if you take the sugar away, it shrinks down. We call that die-off. And so if you're going to reduce the carbs that your child has, you are going to see an effect. And sometimes it gets much worse before it gets better. That's that die-off. But so we'll see what if you're concerned about it being high fat, I would tell you, take a look at what some of the yeast diets are, because we saw a huge difference with our son when you heard Martha Herbert say on the show here last week, to get rid of the sugar, certainly the processed sugar, but she talked about being on a low carb diet as well. We see across the board that is something that can be a very exciting difference for some of our kids who are on the autism spectrum, not all of them. And it is important that we don't try to completely eliminate yeast, all things in moderation, right? But thanks to the Shriners, they're going to do this study at the University of Hawaii School of Medicine, and we'll look forward to seeing the results of that. All right, it is time to take a break. When we come back, we are going to welcome the young filmmaker Rachel Israel, who made the award-winning film Keep the Change. She is seeking to turn this into a feature-length film. And what's different about this film? It has characters that are on the autism spectrum, which is not that different nowadays, right? The difference is that she chose to cast individuals who are on the spectrum, making for a very special film, Keep the Change. We're going to be talking with her right after these messages. Stick with us.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and shows that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones.
You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with TACA the most is hope. To me, that's what TACA means. TACA means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3 week of depression, and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found TACA, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction, and there was hope, and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay, and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without TACA.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found TACA. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without TACA, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. TACA is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At TACA?
At TACA.
At TACA, we are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families.
Helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College, and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone, and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited. Joining us via Skype right now from the East Coast, we have Rachel Israel. She is a young filmmaker, young up-and-coming filmmaker, and teaches filmmaking at the Rhode Island School of Design. She made a short film. It's an award-winning short film called Keep the Change, and it did so well that it had enough buzz around it that she is working hard and seeking some help from all of you to take this short film and turn it into a feature-length film. What is unique about this film The subjects in the film have autism or on the autism spectrum, but Rachel decided to do something different with the casting. So first of all, Rachel, welcome to Autism Live.
Hi, thank you.
And tell our folks at home what you did with the casting that is really exciting.
Well, I cast, so our project is written around real people, and it's a narrative. It's not a documentary, but it's written for real people who are playing fictionalized versions of themselves. And it's cast with people, all people who have autism in the film have autism in the film. It's cast with people who are on the spectrum.
And I think, you know, it's so funny to me that this is a new and novel idea, right? Because a lot of times, you know, this is what we should be doing with casting, but we don't.
Yeah. Yes.
We hire an actor to play somebody who is a different nationality, a different ethnicity, a different disability, and we love the fact that people have the opportunity as actors to try different things, but this is a really exciting way of looking at casting, and I applaud you for doing this. And we should say that in this film, tell folks at home a little bit about what the main plot of Keep the Change is.
So Keep the Change is a love story. The lead character, David, is a newcomer to this community that is a real community, the adaptations program at the JCC Manhattan on the Upper West Side. And he comes to this community because he is kind of being forced by his parents, after having gotten in trouble, to attend a six-week social skills course there over the summer. David is really not comfortable with identifying as a person on the spectrum, but he does meet someone there and named Sarah, played by Samantha Ellisoften, and falls in love. So the story is at heart a love story, but it also deals with for the main character, it's larger than that. It's really coming to terms with his identity.
Well, and I think, you know, as a parent watching it, and I have to say it's a beautiful short film, and I think that anybody would enjoy it. And I love the idea. I certainly hope that you're going to get to make the feature film, because I think it's a film that needs to be made. But it really challenges how we look at a person with disability and what we think is functional and versus what is actually functional. Is that safe to say?
Yes. Yeah.
And these two main actors in the film are truly luscious. I'm curious now, the male actor who plays the male lead, this is somebody that you knew before you decided to make this film, correct?
That's right, yeah. I've known the lead for going on 13 years now.
And is that why you decided to make this film? Did you decide to make it around him, or was that just coincidental?
No, definitely around him. I was, I mean, it came from a place of being the real person, having had this love story in his life. And it had been a long time. I had known, I mean, it was, I guess it's about maybe 5 years ago that he met this person. And that was after all of these years of having wanted it very much. And so it was kind of my feeling inspired as a friend and getting more involved in that side of his life as a friend to this burgeoning relationship that then grew into my inspiration as a filmmaker. And my feeling that there needed to be films out there about love stories and for people, you know, on the spectrum, which I didn't see.
And so, but the girl who plays the love interest in the film, is she his real love interest in real life?
She's not.
Okay.
No, she's not. And he, yeah, she's not. And that relationship, it was a beautiful relationship. It ended up, that relationship not working out, not continuing, but it was a very kind of important relationship in his life.
So let me ask you, so you met the actor that you based this film on. When you met him, did you know that he was on the autism spectrum?
I knew that, I didn't know that he was on the autism spectrum. I didn't know a lot about autism except for what I had seen portrayed in other films. and I wouldn't have recognized him from that. So
Right. Because he is incredibly capable and has many skills. And in some ways, in the beginning of the film, you get sort of a feeling that he doesn't feel like he fits in among these people. And I know as a parent, I was kind of looking at it and going, well, yeah, no, he's right. He doesn't completely fit in, and this is going to be frustrating for him. It really, I think it's very clever the way you set the film up, because it's like walking us into a swimming pool. You walk us in the, in the shallow end, and so we find ourselves in the deep end and having to change our own perceptions. I thought that was really beautiful, the way that you did that. Was it hard for you as a filmmaker working with a cast of individuals who were on the autism spectrum?
It wasn't, it was, I mean, the biggest thing is it was just incredibly fun and rich creative experience. And the challenges that were involved are the challenges that are involved in any, in any creative project. They're wanting to make it good and discoveries, but the material was so rich because I chose to work with these real people, that was fully compensated by the pleasure of it.
And some of the dialogue in the film is so wonderful and realistic. There's a moment when they're walking in the park and they're trying to understand something that each other is saying, and finally she interrupts him, and it's beautiful, beautiful dialogue. I'm curious, how much of that was on the page? How much of it did you get to as a director through improvisation? Either way, it's great work.
Yeah. So the story is fully scripted, and for the short film and as will be for the feature, has gone through many passes. The dialogue and the actors have read the script. From there, I prefer that they put things in their own words, because it's better for their performance, and frankly, they'll write it better than I would. So that particular moment you're talking about, that was one of our looser improv. The shoot will vary between things that are more scripted in terms of the beats that happen, and then they could be simpler scenes where the scene is that the character David in this moment that you're referring to is trying to tell an offensive joke to Sarah, trying to impress her on a first date with an offensive joke. And she doesn't get it, and there's this great back and forth. And so the way that worked on that day of production is we just walked for an hour or two, I think, with Brandon and Samantha. And Brandon, who plays David, has a huge repertoire of offensive humor that I've heard from, like, our whole friendship. He always is looking for new jokes. So that's part of his character, and it's actually, if you watch the film, you'll see these jokes really aren't that nice. But it was something that was important to me to include in it as part of his personality for multiple reasons. One, I think it's important not to sanitize people just because they're on the spectrum, that we should see characters that are fully, rounded human beings with flaws that we can all relate to. And also, for my character, it's one of the kind of negative crutches that he uses socially that pushes him away in a lot of social situations. And in this scene that you're talking about, it really kind of butts up nicely with the female character, the Sarah's character, who has a language processing disability. So it was this great discovery with these two people that actually kind of her way of functioning, where she needs things very literal and can't understand double entendre, and David's character, who only functions with this kind of wit, they have to overcome, they have to both step over their crutches and communicate in a more honest way in order to make the relationship work.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely moment. Now, we've got to talk a little bit about what you need to do to get this funded so that you can get to the feature film. You've been in a funding cycle. Explain to our viewers what that means.
So we're now in the last 2-3 days of our crowdfunder. on Seed and Spark. Crowdfunding works by getting a lot of people to make small donations, and that adds up to enough to make something, mountainous like a feature film. We've had tremendous success, but we are in the last days and looking to push it to the 100% of our goal. We're making this film at a very small budget, as films go. So every dollar that we're asking for, we really do need, and will go toward making this look like a real film, as it deserves to.
Now, when I looked at it yesterday, you were at 85% for the funding.
Yes.
So tell the folks at home, how much do you need to get there, and how much have you got so far?
We're at 98%.
You are at 98% overnight?
We're at 98%. We're moving. I think we're almost at 99.
All right. So how much money did you need to get the whole project funded?
Well, we are asking for 50,000 on the crowdfunder. We have stretch goals that we will now be reaching for stretch goals. But
let's get you to the 100% first, and then we'll go for the stretch goals.
Let's get to 100%, and then we go for stretch goals.
Okay. So how much more money do you need to get to the 100%?
So let's see, we need, how much is it, like 600?
So you only need $600 for this to happen, and you've got 2-3 days. So I would like to say to the viewers watching there, and you can give as small as $5, correct?
Correct.
So for the viewers who are watching, if you got $5 to be able to say, I was a part of getting this film made, I want to challenge you to do that now. $5 to be a part of something bigger. How many opportunities do you get in life to say, I paid $5 and I'm a part of that? And you can proudly say that to anybody, when the feature film comes out. Say that to the family member that you know. Do it in honor of somebody that you love that's on the autism spectrum, that you think their story needs to be told. And for people who want to know more about the film so they see why they should fund it, where do you want to send them to watch so that they can see a clip or see the entire short?
Yes, you can go to seedandspark.com. And our project is right there up on the front page. Keep the Change is the name of the film.
So they can watch a scene from it there, and they can also donate there, correct?
That's right. So Seed and Spark is where they would go to donate and to meet the cast. We have this, great pitch video up where you get to meet the cast and hear why this film is important to them.
Okay, wonderful.
And then for watching the short film, if people want to watch the 16-minute short film, which is an award-winning short film and is kind of shows what actors with autism can bring to the screen, and gives them a sense emotionally of the project, then they can go to our Facebook page and find Keep the Change, and we've got plenty of links there.
Okay. Really lovely film, beautifully cast, beautifully directed, beautifully shot too, by the way. A lot of times for a low budget film, you can see it and you really don't see or feel that. Rachel, I have to say you've done a lovely, lovely job. So if, and we're saying that in the next 2 days you are going to get to 100%, when are you going to start shooting?
We start shooting August 13th.
Okay, it's happening. I love that. You're 100% sure. And when do you expect to be releasing?
Release would come in 2016. So I expect we'll have a lot of footage, and the editing takes a long time. So it'll be a little ways off, but 2016. And
you're staying with the original cast?
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay.
We're staying with the original with the two leads that you'll see in the short film, and we're expanded. All cast are drawn from the same community, so they have existing relationships that we get to pull upon for the story. So it's expanded out to this world, so you really meet a diversity of characters.
Okay.
But it's driven by a love story.
So seedandspark.com, you're on the front page.
Yes.
Remarkable.
Keep the change.
Keep the change. Lovely small short film right now, but we're trying to give her the push, give this young lady the push so that she can start this feature film. Rachel, we thank you so much for being with us on short notice, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's really been an honor.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Lovely film. Kelby and I were able to screen it yesterday, and you need to see this film. You need to. It's very lovely, and it will take you by surprise. And I'm not somebody, I don't feel like you can take me by surprise very often, but it took me by surprise. Lovely. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's some amazing nonverbal work in the end of the film between these two actors. Really quite lovely. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some verbal operants again, because I know you want that. That's the exciting part of the show, right? Stick with us. We'll be right back.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of this has been all the accomplishments over the last 20 years. I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So we've been talking about the verbal operants. I know, doesn't it make you want to yawn really loudly? But if you understand them and where they come in developing language, then it gets exciting. So let's see if we can get excited here. We talked a little bit about receptive, about being able to help kids to decode. I know somebody wrote in and said that sounding out words is the most difficult for AAC users. Absolutely, which is one of the reasons why we want to make sure, and I think before we continue on, it's really important to say that we want to get to functional communication before we get to vocal communication, right? With everyone. That's the truth of how language develops naturally, and for some people, that functional communication, perhaps with assistive technology, is going to be what we lean on heavily throughout their lives, right? That doesn't mean, though, that we still don't teach the verbal operants, right? The verbal operants need to be taught whether somebody's using assistive technology or not. So we start with receptive. Receptive is important, and there are lessons, as I said, in skills where you can work on helping to decode the different sounds so that they begin to understand them. But then we move into echoics, and this is the beginning of everything for anyone that we want to get to vocal speech in particular. We want for them to be able to mimic the sounds that we make. I spoke to you earlier about a TED Talk where the scientist videotaped everything that his child did so that they could put together, this is how the child learned to say their first word, which was water. And we hear the child just echoing what the parents did. So that's the neurotypical. And if we don't get that, then we've got to teach it. We know whenever we want to teach something, we want to first diminish it down to the easiest possible thing for them to do so that we can get to success, because when we get to success, they're going to get a reward. And in the beginning, we're going to reward approximations. It's not going to be exactly what we wanted to hear, right? So we're not going to start teaching the sounds for water. Water is a difficult word to say. The W is a hard sound to do, the T is a hard sound, and whether we sound the R or not, it's going to be hard. But there are other sounds that are actually easier for more kids to make. One of the first sounds that a lot of times we'll teach is ba. Because it involves something that's very unique. So when we're wanting to discriminate between other sounds, it has a very unique thing, right? And when we do ba, we're also getting, that's a voiced, go back to my speech training days, it's a voiced plosive, a ba, right? The unvoiced plosive is the pa, right? So you're getting 2 for 1 when you're teaching those sounds. It involves the lips, which if the child is eating and sucking on a bottle, we're more likely to have that than the skills that involve the tongue, right? So ba is a great place to start, but it's by no means the only sound that you can start with, and it's not the perfect sound for all kids. If a kid has apraxia, or there are other things where they don't have a good suck reflex, it may not be the sound to start with. But for all other kids in general, it's a good place to start. We're just so lucky that ba also is the sound that comes with bottle, because kids will ask for a baba. That's something that they're demanding for, right? And the non-voiced plosive of it, the pa, sometimes, you know, they're saying, you know, pa for papa or whatever. But ba is also the first sound in bubbles, right? Which has the baba later on too. And bubbles for a lot of our kids are really reinforcing. So a lot of times, but not all the time, right? But just a lot of times, a therapist will start with the 50-cent canister of bubbles that you can get in any drugstore. And they'll take out the bubbles, they crack open the bubbles, and they start blowing bubbles to get the child's attention, right? The child comes over and you have to blow, and it's a wonderful, wonderful exercise because it will strengthen. Eventually the child wants to do it themselves, which will strengthen the lips. But it's something that has a cause and effect, and it has a beginning, middle, and end. So the cause and effect, you know, if I take a deep breath and I put my lips together and I blow, I get this beautiful bubble to come, and it's over within seconds. The bubble bursts, and then we have to start anew, right? Which makes for a really good teaching opportunity. So we create an environment in which the child wants to see the bubbles. We show them we're going to blow. They see what happens. We've got their full attention, and then we get creative. We maybe take a little bit of a hesitation that we and wait, and then we blow the bubble, right? So eventually, in that pause, we're going to go ba, 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 right? And what we're going to link up for the child is that the good thing, the reward, doesn't happen until I've said the ba, ba, ba. And you will see with some kids, not all of our kids, that anticipation, the deep, they'll open up their mouths, right? Which is the first thing that we need to do to get to the, because if your mouth is closed, you're not going to get to the ba, right? The first part of it is the open mouth. So some kids will automatically, when we take the breath, and they're waiting for the anticipation, will open their mouths. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. We can, eventually teach them that. But what we're eventually going to do is start having them, at some point, we will work backwards so that we don't blow until they say ba. So I say ba, they say ba, and then we blow the bubble. And this is the way we begin to get to echoics. And what happens, if you can sort of imagine in the brain, there's a synapse here and there's the synapse here, And we teach them ba, 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 and that when you say ba, that the bubble gets blown, it's like one arcs to the other one and we make a connection. Oh, I do this and something good happens. And then we're gonna take that, like the yeast we were talking about before, and we're gonna grow that into conversation. But again, echoics, one of the first things that we wanna do. But very quickly, and sometimes at the same time, with anybody that we're working on building language skills, as soon as we possibly can, we are going to start MAND training. Now, what is the MAND? The MAND is the request, asking for or demanding something, right? That's a good way to remember MAND, but you're asking for something. And you'll see this with neurotypical toddlers all the time. They get to the point where the parents stop giving the child something unless they request it. We can do the same thing with our kids on the autism spectrum. We're just going to expand what we think a request is. The request can be pointing in some cases. It can be going, and then they get something, right? Eventually we're going to shape that up into bottle or cookie or water, whatever the sound is that we want. But we want to teach them, when you do this, that's when you're going to get something. If you want, we're not just going to deliver, snacks and things and deliver stuffed animals. We're going to make the child ask for it. We don't try to tease them. We're not trying to starve anybody. That's not a part of this, right? But we're just rewarding when they do that, right? With all the good things that we have in life. If you know that child wants a potato chip, they always used to tell the story that my mother was somebody who was born with both feet, club feet, backwards. And that she had so many surgeries and had 2 braces, and they needed for her to walk on her braces, and it hurt, right? She wasn't a little girl who wanted to do that. And when she eventually did take her first steps, it was because her dad was drinking an orange soda. And she wanted a drink of that orange soda, and so she got up and she took her first step to go over and get that orange soda. And so we're kind of doing that too. Orange soda isn't necessary to sustain life, right? But there are things that kids want that aren't necessary to sustain life, and we just put those in a place where they have to ask for it, and we can teach them how to point to it. We can teach them echoic so they're making a sound for it, right? Or we can have them trade us an icon. If we're doing a picture exchange, they can touch something on the iPad, and we teach them, when you do this, you get this. And it opens doors for kids. They begin to understand, oh, this is how the world functions. I have to do something, and then you give me the thing that I want. That's the beginning of functional communication, and it really is the beginning of a conversation, right? But it creates the desire in which to communicate. And that's really what we want. The MAND is great. It's easier to teach the MAND than anything else because the reward is in the request, right? If you ask for the cookie and you get the cookie, we don't have to go find a reinforcer. You've asked for it, right? So it makes it really easy. Then we get into some more difficult, uncharted territory. We start talking about tact. And this is not tact as in knowing what to say, when to say, right? And not, telling the whole truth. For the purposes of verbal operants, a tact is when someone contacts something in the environment that's new for the purpose of building on conversation. So after we've done manding, we teach an individual how to label things, right? We'll go through classifications of labels. So we'll teach somebody to say, this is a pen, and we'll teach them receptively and expressively so that I can say, touch the pen, and they know this is a pen, and they touch it, and I can say, what is it? And they say, it's a pen. First, they're going to say pen, and then I'm going to teach them to say, it's a pen. Okay, but that's not enough to have conversation, right? And so often it gets left at that with so many of our kids in the school system where we go through the labels, we show them a flashcard, they can label things, but we're still not at the conversation. Well, tacting is the next level up after labeling something. So if, for instance, I don't want to just walk around the room and go, oh, camera, light, pen, iPad, right? That's of no use to me, but if I have something new come into the environment, let's say that a clown comes walking into my studio, I would definitely want to tell you, and I'd go, it's a clown, right? But I'm not just labeling it. I'm letting you know for the purpose of starting a conversation, look, there's something here and I want to notify you. That's tacting. It's touching on something in the environment, labeling it with the purpose of a conversation. I always tell the story of when I was pregnant, that my husband and I went up over a little hill in a shopping mall, and we were coming down, and there was a outdoor tent sale, and there were all these balloons, and the baby kicked in my belly, and I said to my husband, in like a year, we're going to come over this hill and they're going to have this sale and somebody's going to be in the back seat and go, balloon, it's a balloon. And of course, he wasn't going to do it at a year, but he wasn't going to do it at 2 or 3 or 4 because our child ended up having autism, right? But that's exactly what we want to teach our kids to do, that when they see something, we took my son to look at Christmas lights when we were teaching him tacting. And he would get the biggest bang out of it, and he would go, white for the lights. He would see the lights, and that was tacting, and we would reward him and go, yay, Christmas lights. And it was very exciting to him. Tacting is a really important lesson for us to be learning, because then we go from tacting to interverbals. Interverbals, and there are very specific lessons about tacting, interverbals, mands, all of that in skills if you're interested. There's a whole curriculum for language that deals with all of those and has exemplars, things to teach, how to teach them with teaching guides, right? But interverbal is when I ask you a question and there's nothing present for you to give an answer, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a question, but there's nothing present. So if I say to you, what color is the sun? And you have to come back with yellow, and I didn't show you a picture of the sun, and we weren't talking about yellow, we were talking about the sun. What color is the sun? And you know that it's yellow. So you were able to pull a whole bunch of information together to be able to further the discussion with nothing from before. One of my favorite things to do, there's an improv game that's called Yes and, where you tell a story. You say, there once was a turtle and it was walking down the street, and you sit in a circle and the next person has to say yes. And the turtle's name was Fred, and builds onto it. That's a great game to play when you're trying to build interverbals, because you're not allowed to go back. You can only add things to it. And it helps for somebody to see how a conversation happens, that you don't get stuck in one thing, just labeling things. But trust me, the interverbal lessons that are available in skills are going to help you to get to much more. For those of you who are stuck in one place, like many of you might be stuck in the labeling, I really want to encourage you to look at tacting and interverbals. Look at those lessons in the language curriculum at Skills, and you will be amazed at how far you can get and how you can go from an interaction. There's very specific lessons about all different kinds of things. Like I can think about, there's ones just about the WH questions, about where and who and what. So many other things that are in those lessons as well. Way too many to mention here, and especially because we're running out of time. But take a look at those in Skills, and you will see that you'll start with just one volley back and forth, that you ask a question and then they answer the question, and then you build from there. So I remember it was not that long ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, that we were at maybe 5 exchanges back and forth, that you could have a conversation with my son and go back and forth 5, and now I couldn't even tell you what the exchange is. It's gotten to the point where there's no point keeping track of it. But I remember when we went from 5 to like 7, I remember being in the car and going, let me count, like we just went back and forth 7 times. And then it just went, and maybe 2 summers ago, I remember him being in the back seat with a neurotypical peer. We were driving someplace, and just listening to him hold his own in the conversation and going, holy business, how did we get there? And we got there through the verbal operants. That's exactly how we got there. So if you're lost somewhere on that continuum, take the assessment in language, see where you are, but probably you're in the neighborhood of the tax and the interverbals. We are just about out of time, so I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow on the show, we have Dr. Doreen Graham-Bichet. She's going to be answering your questions live, so be sending them in. I did a clearinghouse on some things, so if you've written a question that didn't get answered, write it again. Send us in some fresh questions for tomorrow. Also tomorrow on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be here with me. And we've got an amazing lawyer who's going to be with us, Thomas Coleman. And he is from the Disability Abuse Project. He's going to be talking with us about a wide variety of things, but in particular, there was an article in the LA Times not too long ago about voting rights for individuals who are on the autism spectrum. We've talked to you about when you can serve an adult on the spectrum to protect them. Sometimes you are taking away their right to vote. And so we're going to be talking about that and some other things going on in the country and in our state here in California that are taking away rights from individuals who have disabilities. It's something that we need to know. So he's going to be here with us, and we're going to cover some of the latest news, some really exciting stuff that's out there, and including, I'm going to talk a little bit about the geocaching that Jem and I did over the weekend. It's fun, but I've got some tips, things I wished I'd known before we started geocaching, because I would have set us up for success, but I'm gonna pass that on to you. Then on Thursday, very excited that we have an author who's going to be with us. Jed Baker is going to be with us, and his new book, which is coming out very soon, is called Overcoming Anxiety for Children and Teens. It's amazing. I've had an opportunity to read some of it, and I'm glued to it. I had to be pulled away from the computer to come here to do the show. So he's going to be with us talking about that, and I know that you guys have some questions for him. Anxiety and autism. All of that on Thursday. Don't forget tomorrow, questions for Dr. Doreen. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye, and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.